Before we start the podcast, I need 3 minutes of your time for an incredibly important announcement. I may live in San Francisco, but I am from Houston, Texas. I am a Houstonian. And as I'm sure those of you listening know, Houston just endured the wrath of Harvey, a massive Category 4 hurricane, which has done its best to try and devastate the entire city. The hurricane dumped more water on Houston than any other weather event in the history of the United States and is being called the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history. It is estimated that up to 40,000 homes are destroyed to the tune of $160 billion. I'm fortunate that my family in Houston is doing okay, but there are so many others just blocks away from them that have had everything taken from them. And in the aftermath of this national disaster, drones are actually poised to make an enormous impact by helping survey and map the area to get a bird's eye view of the damage and to help the responders and volunteers know where to focus their efforts. A selfless group of volunteer drone operators has been selected by the Red Cross to lead this daunting task of mapping the entire Houston area. They've secured an emergency certificate of authorization, a COA, and have permission to operate over Houston from the FAA. One of the volunteers is Mark Blackland. He's a past podcast guest back on episode number 29. And while the Red Cross is not funding the efforts of this group directly, the group does have their cooperation and full support. So they've set up a base of operations on top of a parking garage near I-10 West inside the 610 loop. And you can actually help contribute to this cause. So to help contribute to the success of this valiant effort, Mark Blackland has started a GoFundMe page. And the group will use the funds that are raised to purchase a generator for power and rent an RV for shelter, among other things. Their goal is a modest $5,000. So I hope you'll join me in supporting their mission by donating to the GoFundMe page. You can go to a website, bit.ly/hurricane-drones. That's bit.ly/hurricane-drones. And I'm also going to go ahead and link that up in the show notes and put it on the commercialdrones.fm website. Thank y'all for your support. Houston will prevail. So let's go ahead and get started with the podcast. Welcome to commercialdrones.fm, the podcast that explores the commercial drone industry, the people who power it, and the concepts that drive it. I'm your host, Ian Smith. Hey everybody, and welcome to Commercial Drones FM. I'm sitting here with Mr. Todd Wynne in Dallas, Texas at AUVSI's Exponential Conference, which is the largest drone and robotics conference in the world. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
I've been really excited to get you on the show and chat about construction. So that's the topic we're going to be talking about today. So construction, drones and construction, how the two complement each other and are really going to be used to advance each other's kind of technologies. So first of all, you're co-founder of Project Atlas, but we'll talk about Project Atlas in a minute. This is a piece of software, everybody, that I just absolutely fell in love with once I found out about them. And first to kind of kick it off, Todd, so what is your background? It's heavy construction background, right? So you're not just, a greenhorn coming in on this, we're going to make some construction software.
Right. Yeah, we're not just throwing up Walmarts. We're do heavy duty general construction, commercial, large scale. So I think mega hospitals and buildings that range from data centers to large scale religious churches and all types of buildings, all types of structures. The more complex, the better. We like the nitty gritty to where we really get to leverage technology to solve old problems with new technology.
And so before Project Atlas, though, you were working on those jobs.
Absolutely. Came from the field, worked my way up, out managing subcontractors, reviewing drawings, reviewing submittals, making sure that the Legos, so to speak, showed up in the right size and the right colors, and then that they started to go into place correctly on the job site.
Good. That's great. So yeah, you've got all of this context, you know, all these problems, and you guys, we're kind of segueing here into like, what is Project Atlas? But what I understood was that all this experience that you guys have kind of inspired you. You know, you saw all these problems and you needed to solve them and help the industry forward.
Yeah, there's just so much opportunity right now in construction. And I mean, if you tried to solve it all at once, you would drown in the opportunity. But one that I'm very passionate about is the accessibility of information, especially for the guy with the wrench in the hand, the guy that stands between that beautiful design and then the building actually coming to fruition, coming into reality. And there's just so much information that these guys and girls are having to weed through. So my aim has always been to improve that accessibility of information.
And so tell us about Project Atlas then. What is Project Atlas for maybe just the layman? Like, how would you describe it in a couple sentences?
Google Maps for construction.
Oh yeah, you're really good at this. I remember you can come up with like a comparison metaphor for like any two products.
Yeah, we want to keep it simple. I mean, usually the easiest solutions are the ones you can just look at and understand, and those are usually the most powerful. And essentially, it's a mapping engine for construction. So what that means is we take the design drawings from the architect, from the engineer, what most people would see as blueprints, right? Same things that we've built buildings for thousands of years.
On big sheets that rolled up paper.
Right. 30 by 42 inch sheets of paper. The Egyptians did it off papyrus, but it's the same concept, right? Well, now we're taking those designs and we are converting them into map layers to where the user can zoom in and find a dimension of a room just as easily as they'd want to zoom in and find their favorite restaurant on Google Maps.
And so you guys designed this specifically with a lot of really cool features. We won't go into some of them, but you mentioned accessibility before, right?
Absolutely.
So you even designed this for, maybe one of my favorite things, you came over to Drone Deploy HQ and you gave us a demo of the software and I was totally blown away. And one of my favorite things, and I just thought it was a cute kind of gimmick, was the voice control. Like you can, so tell us about that real quick.
Yeah. So my co-founder, Joe Williams, and I, we just are total nerds. And what I mean by that is nerd is cool these days too, if people don't know it. But we are total construction nerds, and whenever of course, Alexa and Google Home, that was all the rage around Christmas, it got us super pumped. We said, we need this in the app. We need the ability to just call up that specific layer, that design. So for instance, inside Atlas, you could say, show me the structural for level 2, and it immediately turns on that drawing in the mapping engine. So once again, keeping it simple, accessibility of the information.
And voice commands. So and one of the reasons you told me is that also when you're out in the field and you're maybe big burly construction dude,
right,
you don't want to be fiddling around with, tiny little buttons on a phone. You just want to be able to talk right into it.
Absolutely. I mean, our hands are full. We have tools in our hands. We're climbing up gang ladders before the stairs or the elevators go in place. So our hands are full. We got gloves on. Who knows what the weather is? It's either raging hot or it's just crazy cold. So yeah, just being able to ask for what we want. I mean, it's 2017. We do it in our personal lives. We deserve that same result in our work life.
So tell me about one thing I learned from you guys in construction, and it's just been so fun learning construction from you because I never have to go on a construction site, and I feel like I learned so much, even though I'd love to go ahead and do so, was what an RFI is. And can you so what I understood was that Project Atlas solves this problem, and we're going to get to the way that it kind of integrates with this drone data soon.
Sure.
But what is an RFI and why is it important, and why does this huge process called RFIs, like what is this, what is it?
Yeah, so an RFI is request for information, and usually it is clarification to the original design intent. So the architect will design the building and produce a set of drawings for us that we're now converting into these map layers. But if something isn't clarified specifically in a location, or inside the room a dimension is not given and we're unsure, then that's whenever we will formally write what's called an RFI to the design team requesting for additional information.
And you say we as in the
general contractor,
the contractors,
builder.
all the buildings under construction.
Correct.
So they need to file this RFI. And so what was the traditional method of filing an RFI?
Yeah, it was once we got the response back, so the initial submission would be a question saying, what is X? And sometimes we would even propose a solution saying we think it is this. And then once we receive back the answer, we would then take that, we would print it out. This is before even the digitization of the drawings. So before we were loading things on iPads and tablets, we would actually tape the RFI to the back of the drawing and then mark it up in pen and show this area changed.
It's so funny. I'm like laughing, but then I'm remembering like all my memories of construction sites, because I don't go on them super often, are like that sounds actually normal. Like I remember just the big plans and people are writing
rolls of
and
drawings,
taping.
Right?
And,
you think of rolls of drawings
under the armpit, you know, grabbing them all.
Right.
So the RFI process. So Project Atlas has made this a lot easier, and it all kind of ties in with the voice dictation and everything. Sure. And so what did you guys do to just make this easier and more logical given we're in 2017?
Yeah, it's all about revealing information faster for the user. So, and you've been hearing me say accessibility a lot. I'm wearing that word out, but that is exactly what it stands for. On a given day on a job site, we are just sifting through thousands of documents trying to find that specific detail that we need to make a decision. So it's all about making that information transparent so that you can make the right decision as fast as possible.
So is it safe to say that the construction industry is ripe for disruption?
Oh, absolutely. We are on the verge of probably one of the most exciting times that an industry can take off with.
Yeah, everything I see with drones and, the current small drones, their endurance is perfectly suited for like the average construction site. And the information that you can get from drones and apply it to the construction process is pretty incredible. I mean, so how are drones specifically, this basically on-demand aerial imagery? If you just forget about the drone, because it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Like you get this on-demand high-res aerial imagery however often you want. And why is that effective and useful for this industry?
It's night and day. It's an eye in the sky. And we've never had that. We've had to build these multi-tens of millions, $100 million buildings all from the ground without ever being able to look down and seeing how we're doing. And that alone in itself of just being able to look down and say, okay, am I placing all of my material correctly on the job site? Am I loading the building correctly with people and with the workers and with the material? And am I staging the equipment appropriately? These are things we have to make those decisions on the ground, where on a 200-acre site, the superintendent's one man. He can't navigate that whole site at any given moment physically. He's just limited. So by being able to just send up a drone just for that aspect, just for the eye in the sky aspect, without even getting into the workflows, that in itself is just unbelievably valuable to our industry.
I heard a story one time about a construction industry that saved 100,000 or 60,000, something, a ridiculous amount of money from one drone flight, where they identified there was the story that there was a contractor that didn't do something specifically. There was basically a miscommunication that would have cost a ton of money, and because of the drone flight, they saw the thing that was supposed to happen either did or didn't happen, but then there was just this massive cost savings. And so I don't think every drone flight is going to unveil some huge cost savings like that, but do you see that there's benefits over time of doing this? Tell me, maybe you can describe as a construction site develops and is built up and you do drone flights, I mean, how often do you do them? Is there a rhyme or reason?
Yeah,
and why is that useful?
We're learning more about that, but what we've learned so far is it depends on the project. It depends on the schedule. There's many different factors. But we, on projects that I've worked on, we've seen that flying it once a week has been sufficient, but then on others we're saying, no, we need to go daily. Or maybe it's every other day, because we're bringing this imagery in and we're overlaying it with information. We're comparing it versus yesterday's production. It's one of those things where the amount of times you might just want to send up the drone just for 10 minutes to see if the waterproofed above the canopy. So, I mean, the day of the superintendent just pulling his drone out of his vest and throwing it up in the air is not far off.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors. Genius New York is the world's largest business accelerator competition for unmanned systems. In addition to $3 million in startup funding, the program offers company stipends, housing, resources, programming, and networking opportunities. Genius New York is currently accepting early-stage technology companies who are focused on hardware, software, and data analytics related to unmanned systems. Applications are open until October 1st, so go apply now at geniusny.com. That's geniusny.com. Have you heard of Drone World Expo? Well, you should have. Drone World Expo bills itself as the defining event for the commercial applications of UAS technology. It's taking place in San Jose, California on October 3rd and 4th, and I've got a special coupon for Commercial Drones FM listeners. Use code DRONESFM, and if you're a drone end user, you'll get into the full conference free of charge. Other types of drone professionals will save 20% on the full conference or get a free expo pass. Go to droneworldexpo.com and use code DRONESFM. Commercial Drones FM is supported by Deveron UAS. Deveron UAS is building a standardized drone network for farmers all across North America, offering on-demand, near real-time field-level data when you want it. To learn more about how you can achieve scalable data collection in agriculture, visit deveronuas.com. That's deveronuas.com. Okay, back to the show.
And with the drone data then, so how does Project Atlas and drone data combine into one? Tell us about like that and then why that is super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it just makes sense. All of our information on a construction site relates to a location. And in Project Atlas, we've geocalibrated all of the design information and all of the data you're tracking on top of the design information. Well, as you know, with our drone imagery, it's already georeferenced. We can immediately just bring that on top of Project Atlas as a layer, and we can then start coordinating between the drone imagery and the design intent in the drawings themselves.
So overlaying the drawings, like the, you make them transparent, and then you can overlay the, like vector lines of the plans on top of it.
It's all vector tiles in the map itself, just like you'd overlay traffic on top of a street map or
Google Maps. Yeah. There you go, Google Maps for construction.
It's easy to go back to those analogies, right? Or weather patterns on top of a map.
Ah, perfect. Yeah, so it gets there. You have so much more context with the map rather than just a random weather pattern in the middle of nowhere. And so then that allows the company to more accurately file an RFI and even maybe geotag that RFI.
Yes.
So that RFI previously was a sticky note on a drawing and it had no coordinates.
Right.
And now it's logged in time.
Yeah, Ian, it didn't know where it lived. And now it does. And that's the game changer, is everything relates to these two dimensions, and that's space and time. And right now we are really focused on space and tying everything to its location.
That's awesome, man. I just get so excited when I talk to you guys because I just sense like the passion just oozes out of you about this, and it just gets me so fired up.
It's not work whenever it's passion, right?
Exactly. So what does the kind of the technology adoption life cycle look like for drones on the construction site? So in other words, how are they being like, you know, we can say, okay, like, you know, DJI's Mavic Pro, it's a tiny little drone. You could literally fit it in a tool belt.
Absolutely.
And so we're not there yet. Like, tell us actually, like, is every worker going to have one, and how does it start and where does it wind up?
You know, it's interesting. For companies that have fully adopted drones in the construction space, and that's rare still today. I mean, it's one of those where it's booming right now. We are in the midst of it. But it always, it starts with either replacing something that was done before, such as just progress photos. We were paying aerial photography to come out once a month.
Right?
Helicopters, absolutely. Planes, pilots, and to come out, and we would have budgeted an allocated amount of funds to do that once a month, but it's only once.
Can you give an example of the cost of that?
Yeah,
roughly?
I mean, it was $600 to $1,000 a month allocated to that.
Straight up, just for aerial
So
photos, not even like a aerial like ortho mosaic. Or
right? No, not at all. These were just simple still imagery from somewhat of the same locations.
Yeah, nothing georeferenced.
Right, absolutely. And it was extremely valuable to us because we were still trying to get that eye in the sky. A lot of times it was just being used for progress to the owner to give them an update on here we are with your building, because not all of our owners live next to the site, sometimes in different countries even. But then once you start getting into that in the progression, I want to get back to answering your question, you start seeing the other low-hanging fruit, which goes back to more of the logistics planning, understanding how to use the drone as an eye in the sky for seeing where are you properly using the footprint of the site to lay down your material, or for inspections. We started finding out how it was so much easier and safer for us to send a drone up to do an inspection rather than putting a human being in harm's way up on a lift in high winds. Now, of course, our drones can only take so much wind either, but we would much rather risk that device than a human hanging off the side of a building trying to make sure that the window was caulked efficiently.
Yeah. So the one thing, well, I'm kind of skipping ahead here. I have some questions written down. But so you're really into technology and early adoption. You specifically.
Absolutely.
We went out to dinner, a couple weeks ago, and you pulled out 360 cam. You had the FLIR camera, that was the thermal camera on your iPhone and everything. So what about other technologies that are complementary to drones and construction? Like this new layer of data that's coming in, and something that's really I'm really passionate about, and I'm going to segue like multiple things here so it could get confusing, but is AR and VR, so augmented reality and virtual reality on the job site, but then also with drones. And then I'm going to kind of tie that in. Like, I don't want to forget to ask you about the ruggedness. Like there's a few pieces of AR and VR gear that you're very well versed in. I mean, you were an early adopter for Google Glass, right?
Yeah, original Google Glass Explorer. I was, as some say, a glass hole. I was the guy wearing those around and
getting kicked out of bars.
Yeah, exactly. Having everyone come up to me saying, "Stop filming me," and I really don't understand why everyone thinks I was trying to film. I really do not want to film you.
I think everyone's going to be wearing those things in the. It was just they're just going to be built into your glasses.
Well, exactly. I think the thing is with Google Glass, and what Google did there was actually fantastic. Even though we're not all wearing Google Glass today, I mean, I don't even wear mine today, but the thing was, they took a risk that allowed other people and other companies to start taking more risks that now have allowed new devices such as the HTC Vive and the HoloLens. And now, I don't know if you've heard of RealWear and some of what they're doing. And there's these other trailblazers that are actually getting to follow behind the real trailblazer, which really took a lot of the heat and got made fun of with Google Glass. But right concept, right idea. What's the form factor we end up on? I don't know that yet. It could be a contact lens for all I know.
So we've talked about this before, and I was like, we got to get this on the podcast. So the thing that I loved, like I wouldn't have known RealWear. I probably wouldn't have known there's a company called Daiquiri that also makes augmented reality. And so just imagine this. I've talked about this on the podcast once before, and just imagine that there's these glasses that you're wearing, and they could be safety glasses on the construction site with cameras and a voice recorder. I mean, this is the stuff you guys are investigating, incorporating.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, right now, just being able for a worker to read a drawing, whether that's on paper, on an iPad, or even in Project Atlas, for them to be able to read that that information on where to drill that screw is great, but we can go much further than that. We can actually overlay using augmented reality, actually mixed reality. A lot of people that aren't familiar with MR, please go Google it, check it out. It's not just combining AR and VR. What mixed reality is it's augmented reality, but actually the device is mapping out your space. That's what HoloLens is. It's mixed reality.
Microsoft HoloLens.
Yeah, and Daiquiri's using the same technology. So what it's doing is it's scanning the geometry around it, and then it's interacting with that geometry. And with that future, we're able to overlay on the geometry that's in place and show the worker, this is where you screw.
Wow. And then you combine all of that data with the drone data and the geospatial plans, and now all of a sudden you've got this amazing 360, 4D, you get the temporal data as well. And
it's the connected job site, and it's the Internet of Things is going to come to the job site, and it's going to come very fast because it's an industry of deskless workers. They do not have the beautiful large monitors and gaming machines that those of us that do get to sit in an office can take advantage of. Instead, they are mobile. It has to be rugged, it has to work, and it has to present them with the data they need in the moment.
What is the future then for Project Atlas? So you guys are a very, very young company, a startup in the truest sense.
Yes.
So what do you guys imagine in the future then? We've talked about coming from the kind of stone age of papyrus plans for construction all the way to augmented reality and connected drone data and all this stuff. So where do you guys imagine yourselves playing a role with Project Atlas?
Well, it's ambitious, Ian, but I believe dream big or go home. So I think we want to be a big part of that. We want to be a big part of the foundation in building the map for the job site, where all of this IoT, where all of this drone data, where all of this wearable data and AR, VR, 360 reality capture, all of this data can come and live together on your project and be visualized. I see the day in when the superintendent is now the conductor of the symphony, and from his device he can actually orchestrate the project into reality.
I love the future that you paint. So thank you so much for being here. Todd Wynne, again, from Project Atlas, co-founder. Very thrilled to have you. Listeners, you can check out Project Atlas. They're going to have an integration on the Drone Deploy app market, so you can easily get your drone data into Project Atlas and vice versa, and overlay your plans in there. And then you can also follow Project Atlas on Twitter at projectatlas_IO, and check out their website at projectatlas.io. And then you can follow Todd Wynne himself on Twitter at Todd, TODD_WYNNE. And then while you're at it, please do follow the podcast, Commercial Drones FM, at Drones Podcast. And remember, you can support the longevity of the podcast and gain entrance to our private Facebook group for just $1 a month. And you can learn how you can help at patreon.com/dronespodcast, patreon.com/dronespodcast. So Todd, any last thoughts before we cut off the mics?
The future is bright, Ian. Thank you so much for having me here, man. I can't tell you, I'm as pumped as anyone what the future holds, not just for my industry, but for all. We live in an exciting time, man.
I'm super pumped too. I'll cheers you to that.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. All right, everyone. We'll catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.